How's it going, everybody? CJ here, back with another video. Today I'll be doing a deck tech for the newly spoiled Athreos Shroud-Veiled. So I'm not going to be doing a full deck, but I'm going to be going through cards that will be very strong inside the deck. And so Athreos says he's a legendary enchantment creature, of course, with indestructible. He is not a creature unless your devotion to white and black is more than 7. So 7 or greater. If it's less than 7, then it's not a creature. At the beginning of your end step, you put a coin counter on another target creature. That could be a creature you control or an opponent controls. And whenever a creature with a coin counter on it dies or is put into exile, return that card to the battlefield under your control. So it's multiple different routes you can take building this deck, being self-sacrifice for value or like killing your opponent's creatures to steal them. I think the killing your opponent's creatures might be a little stronger, but both inside the same deck still seem really good together. So we're just going to go through a couple of the cards that would be good for the sacrifice stuff first. Like stuff for yourself to use and reuse. Alunda the Dusk Rose is a really good card in it because you can create a bunch of tokens, and when she dies, you create a bunch of tokens, and then she can come back, and you can do it again, and it's great. That's just great. Fleshbag Marauder and cards like Fleshbag Marauder and let's say what's the other one called? Plague Crafter and similar are all very good. ETB, everyone sacks a creature. If you don't sack Fleshbag Marauder or Plague Crafter, then you can put a counter on it. When it dies, comes back, and everyone sacks a creature again. Grave Titan, great card in it. When it enters the battlefield, or attacks, you create 2 zombie tokens. So it's just a way to protect it, and when it dies, you just create another 2 zombie tokens. There's cards like Midnight Reaper, which are really good for like sacrificing your own stuff and being able to draw a bunch of cards. Same thing with Harvester of Souls. You can do stuff like Noxious Gear Hulk or Ravenous Chupacabra to destroy creatures and then have them die, come back, destroy another creature. There's value stuff like Recruiter of the Guard, which can go and grab you any creature with toughness 2 or less, which includes stuff similar to like Fleshbag Marauder or Midnight Reaper. And then when with the coin counter, just being able to do it over and over seems very powerful. Shriek Maw, similar, but it also has the evoke ability. CDC is great. It's a repeatable tutor if you use it if you don't exploit itself. Solemn Simulacrum is a great card in the deck. Enters the battlefield, you go get a land. When it dies, you draw a card. So if you just put a coin counter on it and sack it every time, you're just getting a land, drawing a card every turn. Sun Titan is similar to Grave Titan, except it also recurs. It gives you recursion, which can be very, very powerful in the deck. And stuff like Sir Conrad seems really cool because it's when another creature dies, or a card is put into your graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature leaves the graveyard, then deals 1 damage to each opponent. So it would let you deal 2 damage to each opponent every time a creature with a coin counter on it dies, because death trigger and leaves the graveyard trigger. And yeah, then we got stuff like Hell's Caretaker, which is very strong in the deck. You can sack a creature with a coin counter on it, return a creature from your graveyard to the battlefield, and then the creature with the coin counter on it comes back too. You can also do a little combo with like Karmic Guide and Revelark, which is a very well-known combo. Just being able to grab anything with power 2 things with power 2 or less with Revelark when it leaves the battlefield, which includes Karmic Guide. So you just grab Karmic Guide, or play Karmic Guide, return Revelark to the battlefield, sack Revelark, sack Karmic Guide. Karmic Guide dies, Revelark dies, Revelark grabs 2 creatures, including Karmic Guide, back, and just repeat. So if you do that with like Midnight Reaper, you can draw through your deck. Or something like Ravenous Chupacabra, you can destroy all your opponent's creatures. And so it's a pretty nice little combo that you can throw into this deck. I'm also a really big fan of Selfless Spirit in this deck, because you can just continue every turn you need to. You can put a coin counter on it, and it just gives all your creatures indestructible by sacrificing it. And so you can just sack it, it'll come back after with the coin counter on it, and all your stuff is indestructible, and you can do it again if you need to. And if you can just keep that keep Selfless Spirit on the board via the coin counters, then you can make it so your board is very, very hard to beat, especially with board wipes. And you're going to want to have a lot of removal in this deck too, because you can steal your opponent's creatures that have coin counters on them. So stuff like Anguished Unmaking, Path to Exile, Swords to Plowshare, Utter End, all instant speed removal, really, really good in the deck because of the fact that it's on your end step you put the coin counter on. So you can just coin counter on your end step. Before they untap with the creature that you don't want them to have, you can just exile it or destroy it, and then it comes back into play under your control. Generous Gift is another really good one for that. Mortify. And also board wipes. You can do the same thing, like just hit stuff with coin counters that you want, and then Damnation, or Day of Judgment, or Wrath of God, and take everything that you want. And another really good piece of tech for this deck is like reanimation spells. So like Reanimate, Necromancy, and Animate Dead are all very strong in this deck because a lot of stuff's going to be dying, and you're going to be wanting to have a lot of that stuff back. So just easy ways so you can grab that stuff. For Planeswalkers, we got Liliana Dreadhorde General is a really, really good one in the deck because it gives you stuff that you can sack. It makes it so each player sacks stuff, lets you draw cards when creatures die, and if you ever ult it, you're going to probably win the game. For another really good little package to throw into the deck is stuff like Grave Pact or Dictate of Erebos, because you're going to be killing a lot of your own creatures, most likely. You're going to be sacking a lot of stuff. And when you do that, you should make it so your opponents sack stuff too. So they make it so you can really hurt your opponents by just doing what your deck wants to do. Revel in Riches seems like a very fun card in the deck as an alternate win con, just because you're going to be killing a lot of your opponent's stuff. Your opponent's going to have to sack a lot of stuff. You can create a lot of treasures. Even if you also have Smothering Tithe in the deck, it can give you even a bigger boost into treasures. And if it can either ramp you, or you can just hold off and use it to hope to win the game. And you got to have a lot of ramp, obviously, because he's a 6-mana commander. Ashnod's Altars are very good. Sack Outlet in the deck because it gives you 2 colorless mana, and so like if you put a coin counter on something, you can sack it twice. It's 4 mana. And ETB or death triggers. Bulls of Citadel is a great card in the deck. Just lets you play off your deck, like the actual cards off your deck, and lets you just generate a lot of value. Phyrexian Altar, very similar to Ashnod's Altar. Skull Clamp is a great card in the deck because you're going to be sacking stuff. It can sack your smaller stuff for you, but if your stuff's too big for that, you can still just equip it and sack and get it back with the coin counter and draw 2 cards off Skull Clamp. And one card I think that is really, really strong in this deck is actually Whip of Erebos. So Whip of Erebos and cards like Whip of Erebos or Puppeteer Click, which lets you reanimate a card until end of turn. You can do that, and instead of losing the card at the end of turn, you can put a coin counter on it with Athreos, and it'll leave, then come back into play under your control permanently. And that's a really good way of getting around Whip of Erebos' downside of you have to exile the animated creature at the end step, and if it would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else, because if you can grab something from that gets exiled back into play via Athreos. And same thing with Puppeteer Click, except that's going to be an opponent's creature, which is really cool. Plus it's got Persist, so you can sack it without needing the coin counter on it, and then you can put a coin counter on it, and it's just much harder to remove. And I think that's everything I wanted to go through with this deck. Let me double check. Yeah, that's everything I wanted to go through. Viscera Seer is another really good sack outlet. But yeah, so this deck seems like it could be a lot of fun. It could be a very powerful deck, depending on how you build it. It seems like it could be really, really cool as a steal your stuff deck. It can also be just strong as a sacrifice deck. But actually, original Athreos would be a good addition to the deck, just because if you're sacking a bunch of stuff, then you can just get stuff back to your hand or deal a lot of damage through through people paying the 3 life. And so yeah, if you guys enjoyed this deck tech, please remember to like, subscribe, share, comment, and follow me on Twitter, on Twitch, on everything, and vote for me in the nominations thing that'll be linked down below. We'll see you guys next time. Peace out.